What's up guys, Billy here, and today we're going to be running through the DJI Go application so I can share with you the settings that I use when I fly my DJI Spark. Now as far as the Phantom 4 Pro or the Mavic Pro are concerned, if you fly either of those drones and are wondering the settings I use on them, I've made videos on them already and I'll throw the links to those videos down in the description if you're interested. One more thing that I do want to mention is that as far as the actual settings are concerned, I'm not going to be going through them in depth, rather I'm going to be going through my thought process when I was first setting up my Spark when I took it out of the box. So anyway, jumping into the DJI Go application, the first thing I want to go over are the camera settings. Now on this very first page, I usually have this set to manual first of all, and then from there, tweak it depending on what the sun is like outside or my lighting conditions are like. Usually I have it set to a higher shutter speed just so that I can compensate for how bright it is outside. I don't have ND filters yet. They're on the way from Polar Pro, so soon I'll be able to test them out, but for now I'm stuck shooting at a high shutter speed. Next up is this weird menu. On the Phantom 4 Pro and Mavic Pro, really any other DJI drone, usually this is filled with a bunch of different customizable settings, but right now it's at like a dead page. There's nothing you can do with it. So hopefully DJI updates this within the coming months, weeks, hopefully we'll see. The next page gives us our histogram, display camera OSD, white balance, and grid. First of all, with the histogram, I had this turned on. That's that little box you saw pop up. This gives me an accurate reading of what the actual levels or the exposure levels look like. So I'm not overexposed, I'm not underexposed, and this allows me to monitor that. Next up is display camera OSD. It's that little box in the top right corner you see that gives me my ISO value as well as the shutter speed. Again, I had this turned on, but if you were to turn it off, that box totally disappears. I had that turned on just so I can keep my mind sane, and I know that all of my values are set perfectly, so I'm going to get the perfect shot. Next up is white balance, and I usually bounce back and forth between sunny and cloudy. Sunny is perfect for sunny conditions, and cloudy is perfect for cloudy. I would not recommend using auto, as if you're shooting during the day, the lighting conditions could change and your white balance could change because you have it set to auto, and that can become a little bit difficult to color correct in post-production and make everything look perfect across the board. So again, I would recommend choosing one of these and sticking with it throughout the day. Now the final thing is grid, and usually I have this turned off so I have it set to none, but if I'm trying to fix a tilted horizon, I'll go ahead and turn on grid lines just for a little bit, just so I can fix the horizon, and then from there turn it right back off, as I find it a little bit annoying. Next up, we're going to be jumping into the actual settings of the drone itself, which are the three dots in the top right corner. We'll start in the top left corner and work our way down. So first of all are the main controller settings, and the first up within these main controller settings are the return to home settings. So first of all is RTH at current altitude. So basically, wherever the drone is, if you lose signal, if you choose to return to home, it's going to return to home at that altitude. Usually I'm flying lower with my Spark, so I have this turned off, and therefore I have my return home altitude set at 60 meters. This is around 200 feet and will usually get me over any obstacles that are in the area, any trees, any power lines, etc., etc. So I find that 60 meters is the perfect balance for your return home altitude. I used to use 90 meters, which was 90 meters, which was 300 feet, and I found that that was a little bit too high. Now moving down, we have our flight restrictions. First of all, beginner mode, I had this turned off, but if you're new to DJI drones, I would recommend turning it on, as there's no shame because you're a new pilot. So again, I would highly recommend turning that on, as it definitely helps. I know that my very first drone flight was 50 feet up, 50 feet down, and I went right back inside. As far as the max flight altitude is concerned, 120 meters is the maximum, the legal limit. 120 meters is 400 feet. I have this set to 150 feet just to give me a little bit of leeway in case I have some obstacles that I need to get over, or just in case I need to fit everything inside of one shot and I need to get that extra room, like go 10, 15 feet higher. So again, 150 meters does the trick. As far as enable max distance, I have this turned off. I find it super annoying if I have this set to 30 meters, which is 100 feet, and I'm flying, and I hit a virtual wall. It's just very annoying. So again, have this turned off. The next page, visual navigation settings. Across the board, I have all of this stuff turned on. First of all, enable obstacle avoidance turned on, just in case if I'm flying too close to something and it thinks I'm gonna crash. It's better to be safe than sorry. Sometimes if I'm in like a tight area, I'll turn this off just so that the drone doesn't think I'm about to crash when really I'm just flying. So again, turned on for the most part. Next up, enable backward flying. This will allow the drone to fly backwards in active track. I have this turned on as I think those shots look fairly cool, but I would recommend checking out the area and making sure that there are no trees, no obstacles, so again, use that with caution. Next up is enable advanced gesture control. This basically turns on the gesture control for the Spark, so if you want to use palm launch, palm land, the hand control, away, selfie, all that stuff, you're going to want to have this turned on, which I do have turned on just in case if, I've just got the Spark and I'm trying to have some fun and I want to send it up with just my hand. Moving on is allow indoor, away, and follow. This is actually a brand new setting that came in with the last firmware update, and this is pretty cool as it pretty much disables away and follow when you're indoors with weak GPS signal. Basically, if you're indoors, you've got lower ceilings and you're going to go and send the drone away from you, or it may go away from you by accident and it could hit the ceiling. That would be a very bad thing. So if you have this turned on like I do, it'll allow the away and follow to actually work inside. And the reason I had this turned on is just so that all the time it'll work when I tell it to. And usually I don't use gesture mode inside. So if you're inside using gesture mode, I would recommend turning that off so it would look like this. Therefore, when you're inside, it's not going to work. Away won't work. You're not going to crash your drone by accident. But for me, I usually have this turned on as I use gesture mode outside. Next up, the remote controller settings. First of all is the stick mode. This is purely for personal preference. I have this set as mode 2. That was the default. That's what I started on. Some people I've heard use mode 3 just because they come from playing Xbox, Call of Duty, Battlefield, all of those games, and the helicopters you fly in those games are actually similar to mode 3, which I totally get, but again, this is all personal preference. I personally use mode 2. Next up are the button customization. The two customizable buttons are first of all the FN button on the front, and then on this back right here it's the C button. So first of all, for FN I had this set to battery info so I can always check up on the milliamp hours as well as the voltage. And then finally for advanced camera settings, for the C button, I have it set to advanced camera settings so it'll quickly shoot out from the side and I can check my exposure value, my ISO, and my shutter speed all at a quick glance. You guys can set this to whatever you want. There's definitely a bunch of different options here. I found that I like to use battery info and advanced camera settings. I have this basically on all of my drones, but again, personal preference, play around with it and see what you prefer. Next up is Wi-Fi settings. There's nothing really to change here. You can flip back and forth between 5.8 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz. You may have to restart your Wi-Fi. Both of these are fairly different. I've made some videos in the past explaining the differences. Basically, in a nutshell, 2.4 gigahertz is longer range with less quality. I mean, you're going to get less signal. It's going to be a worse signal, I guess you could say. And then 5.8 gigahertz gives you a stronger signal, but it only works in closer range. Basically, you guys get the gist. If you guys want to check up on the image transmission settings, I'll throw a link down in the description to that video that I have made. Also, within this page here, it gives you the SSID for the Wi-Fi as well as that signal's password. So if you guys don't know where to check that up, whether it's on the box, whether it's on the case, whether it's on the Spark, you guys know that'll always be right here for you in the Wi-Fi settings. Now next up is the aircraft battery. Again, not much to change here whatsoever. The only thing that we do have to change is the low battery warning, which I have set to 20%. I find that if you go all the way down to 15%, it can get a little bit risky, as going down to 10%, you get critically low and the drone will basically land itself. So 20% will start beeping in my ear and I know that it's time to come home. 30% I find is a little bit too early and then I end up blowing it off. And then before I know it, my drone is at 10% and it's landing by itself. So again, I think that 20% is the perfect amount. If you go any higher, it just seems a little bit unnecessary. Now next up are the gimbal settings, and for gimbal mode I had this set to follow. So this will always keep the camera steady, whereas FPV it's going to bank the camera left and right. So if you're using FPV goggles, it'll give you that sensation of flight as you're banking side to side, but follow will always keep the the camera steady. I'll throw a little example up on the screen really quickly. This right here is follow, and this right here is FPV. So I would personally recommend using follow if you're trying to get nice footage, but if you're using the DJI goggles or any other VR FPV headset, you guys can always use FPV, as I think it is a pretty good time. The final thing that we can change here is gimbal pitch speed, which I usually have set to 20. I'm not sure why that was set down to 19. This gives me nice slow gimbal movements up and down, whereas I think if you set it any higher, it's going to look uncinematic. If you're not trying to get footage and you're just trying to fly around, look around, maybe 100 is perfect for you, as you can quickly shoot up, down, but personally I usually like to set mine on 20 as it gives me nice precise movements with the gimbal wheel on the back. Now finally, moving on to our general settings tab. First of all, measurement units, I have this set to imperial. This all depends on where you live. You know, if you guys use the metric system, switch it over to metric, it's going to be easier to read. But for me, living in the United States, I have this set to imperial. Next up is the, let's see, calibrate map coordinates. I don't live in China, so I have that turned off. Cache during video shooting. I have this turned on, so it always saves basically a backup to my phone of the video that I shoot, or I guess, you know, the footage that I shoot. And I have this set to auto, so it will save all of it. I have 90,339 megabytes available on this phone, and I find that usually I'm never going to run out of storage. I've got 256 gigabytes on here, so you guys can choose between 2 gigabytes, 4 gigabytes, etc., etc. And also, you have this option down here to clear the cache automatically, so once you hit that 4 gigabyte limit, it's going to start automatically deleting. So this all depends on the size of the storage on your device. I have it set to auto, and usually I'll flip back and forth between maybe 16 gigabytes, but auto always makes sure I have all of my footage backed up just in case. So let me switch that back to auto. And then again, as far as clear cache automatically, I have this turned on so that if I start going over my limit, it's going to delete the older footage to make room for that newer footage. Now finally, record audio with video cache. I have this turned on, and it'll actually record the audio from my device, so if you listen to the cached clip back, that cached footage, you're going to be able to hear the voices from you, the voices from your friend, and I find that I like to have this turned on. I can always mute it if I need to, if I put it in like an editing software, but again, I like to have this on as maybe if I'm doing something, I can quickly say it and go back and listen. I don't know. There's possibilities out there. I just like to have it turned on. That's basically it. Honestly, I'm usually so used to sitting here for like 20 minutes and doing this for the Phantom 4 Pro or the Mavic Pro because the settings are so dense. There's so many different features here and there. But with the Spark, it's fairly bare bones. I'm sure that they'll keep updating this as time goes on with software updates and firmware updates here and there. So definitely be sure to check on my channel for those regular software update videos, as every single time an update is pushed out, I try to go over all of those different settings that are added. But anyway guys, that basically wraps up this video. Again, if you guys have the Mavic Pro or the Phantom 4 Pro, feel free to check the links down in the description to see some of the settings I use for those drones. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, I'll talk to you later. Peace.